And good evening, everyone. ESS proudly presents the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Your host tonight, Joey Ree, I'm Dave Bartlett, myself, Pete Goslaw, and our gracious interviewee tonight is going to be Chris Bernard, SUNY Potsdam men's hockey coach. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you having me on.
We're gonna talk about a lot tonight, and I know we're might as well get the COVID thing out of the way, but I'll throw it over to Joey and we'll go from there. Go ahead, Joe.
All right. Coach, how you doing? Good to see you.
Hi, Joe. Good to see you.
Third time's a charm for those that don't know. We've been trying to get Chris on here. And Chris is one of our, Coach Bernard's one of our originals from 5 or 6 years ago. We did the full bore right in front of us at the Riverview. I believe it was the Riverview.
Yep.
And learned a lot that night. That was the first night that I realized that freshmen in hockey were 20, 21, 22 years old. You were the one that explained that to me, and it was all that I never knew that. So looking forward to some great information tonight. But like Pete said, pretty much with every guest that we talk to, especially the coaches, we got to start with what's going on in present day world for Coach Bernard and SUNY Potsdam hockey and with the COVID situation. So I'll let you go.
Well, long about 2 weeks ago, the SUNYAC came out with their judgment that there weren't going to be any fall sports, and that the winter sports were going to have a delayed start until January with games. So for us, to be honest, it was a disappointment, but not necessarily a surprise. And so it gave us an opportunity to know where we were at, and then to kind of plan and build from there. And I think this is a great lesson, we're learning all in this pandemic is to, the time you spend to worry about things that are outside your control, there's a lot of wasted time. And so I think for our guys, just trying to get them to adapt to a flexible mindset, and be able to give them the updates, give them the intel, give them the information as we know it at the time. And of course, that was a big piece for us. So with us not being able to play games until after the first of the year, that means that we start to set our eyes on giving our athletes some modicum of training, and experience as a student athlete. And so right now our plan is at SUNY Potsdam to start, skating in October. The month of September is a normal dead period for us anyway, through NCAA rules. And so starting in October, we'll have our guys going for small group practices, much like the NHL did, 10 guys or so. And then, we'll do our weight training and conditioning through the month of October, November. And then once the Thanksgiving break comes, the schools will go on break, and then they'll make a determination about what the second semester looks like. And of course, we're all optimistic that at that point we'll start playing league hockey games in January.
So right now, probably the hope is we get a SUNYAC season in, probably no non-leaguers or anything.
That's it. That's a great observation, Joe. Is that for us as a SUNYAC coaching body, we've met a couple times and we've said, look, if we could have full SUNYAC 16-game schedule, that would be, under the current conditions, that would be awesome. And so that's what we're all aiming for the second half. It's going to be a bit of an amendment, adjustment. Our normal schedule of, back-to-back games Friday and Saturday probably won't be the same. We'll probably be looking at some Wednesday night games and Saturday night games so that we can avoid the overnight stays. But you look at us, we're going to Fredonia, Buffalo State. We're talking about 5-6 hours on a bus. So we've got to make sure that we plan accordingly. We a down and back to play Fredonia on a Friday and come home and play, turn around and play Buffalo State on Saturday is just not going to happen. And so I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to schedule it out. So we would play sort of like a Wednesday night at home and then a Saturday night on the road, and of course flip it for the next week.
And probably those Wednesday night games try to be your your closer trips. You
Yeah,
would think.
exactly. You know, to try to get our Wednesday night games. And then right now we've kind of proposed, we're kind of unique because we have 9 teams in the SUNYAC for men's hockey. So it's not like an even divide where you can play strictly at East or West format. So we're kind of looking at the potential of like what we're calling pods. So, you know, you've kind of got a central division, a Western division, and an Eastern division. You play everybody in the West once, you know, everybody in the East, you know, twice, and everybody in the Central, you know, in the East 3 times, and everybody in the Central twice, so that there's a degree of competitive balance.
Well, I mean, here's hoping. I mean, that's all. That's all.
Yeah,
We
well,
can do.
I really appreciate that. Anybody out there who can offer some sentiments and some prayers and some good thoughts for us to get a chance to get a season in, just because, you know, we got such a great group of kids, and you know, I feel badly for all these athletes, you know, who've invested so much throughout their lives, really, to get to want to be able to have some sort of season would be terrific.
So Coach, they're gonna try to squeeze in, no matter when they start, they're gonna squeeze in a full season, you think? No matter-
Well, I don't think they're going to full season, Pete. I think what they'll do is, as Joey said, they'll drop the non-conference games, which for us is 9 games. And then they would just play just the conference games. And like, it may be, you know, where if we're playing usually 16, there might be a situation where if we go with the current model, we would play 14. But for us to have what we think is, you know, we could qualify, the full season in a playoff, I think that's the best that we can hope for under the circumstances.
Okay.
And right now we're, I'm assuming the NCAAs don't have any intentions of any championships themselves, right? So we're looking at trying to win the SUNYAC title, and that's
that's our goal every year anyway, you know. And I think, you know, we want to win the national championship, but I think you understand that we've got to win a SUNYAC championship before we can get there. And you know, last year we made it to the SUNYAC semifinals. It's the first time we'd been there in almost 2 decades, so that was a good thing. And you know, we've only won it once in the history of our program. 1996 was the year that they did it. So, you know, we know the challenge that's at stake. At the same time, it's always our goal to have a chance to win that first and foremost. And of course, we know that that'll get us to the big dance. Whether NCAA is going to formalize having championships or not, I think is just a fluid circumstance, like so many other things.
So before we get off the team, since we're talking about the team, give us a little synopsis of last season and what you were looking forward to this season. I mean, what was coming back? Who you got coming in?
You know what? I appreciate you asking that question, Joe. To kind of forecast a little bit on maybe what we would be excited about, and we just look at it. We're going to remain excited. It just might be a little delayed, right? I was telling my sons the other day. I said, it's hard to believe I'm going to open my Christmas presents before I coach a hockey game this year. You know, it seems like a long way off, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to say to our guys, you know, again, what are the things that are inside our control that we can build on together in this time that we have? And I think that just is focusing on getting better. You know, how do you get better? How do you take this time to identify the elements that in your game that you'd like to see, you know, developed? Whether it's your conditioning, maybe it's your strength, maybe it's your quickness, maybe it's your hockey IQ or understanding of the game. We've got plenty of video for guys to be able to access and watch during these times. And so that's a lot of what I'm really looking forward to, is the character kids that we have and how we utilize this time. You know, so you ask about what we have coming back. We have a lot of guys coming back. We graduated some high performers for us, guys that were big pieces for 4 years as seniors. At the same time, what we pride ourselves on is trying to get the next group of guys ready. So, okay, you vacate that amount of ice time. You know, now you think, hey, somebody who's slowly growing throughout the process. Now it's their time to take over that. You know, that. Power play slot, you know, that time on the penalty kill, that time in the crucial situations on the ice. And I think we've got some guys in house to do that. I have a immensely large junior class this upcoming year. We've got 11 guys in that junior class. We've got 6 guys in our senior class. So we've got a lot, you know, 17 guys in your junior or senior classes, a lot of guys that have played a lot of games for us that we're looking forward to being able to rely on. And I think looking back to last year, it was a tale of two seasons really for us. We struggled immensely at the start of the year just to put wins together. And the funny part was, and of course you guys have been there as coaches, is you think to yourself, I think we're really pretty good. I think we're a good team. I think we're playing quite well, but we just seem like hard luck losers. We seemed like, guys that we couldn't catch a break for, whether it was, our power play was really good on one night, but our penalty kill wasn't very good. And our goaltending was brilliant, but we couldn't score. And then all of a sudden we'd score 4 goals and maybe our goalie would give up a clunker, And so, Joey, you appreciate this. I said it was a lot like my golf game. When I was coming off the tee, I couldn't putt, you know what I mean? And then when I start putting, my middle irons are terrible. And so, very rarely, do I put it all together. And that, of course, was a challenge that I had for our team. And then all of a sudden, but because we liked the kids, we loved the effort level from game one on, we felt there was something to build on. And to the kids' credit, we talk about being process oriented. What about our process, is good, and what about that has to be enhanced? That way we don't get too high emotionally, don't get too low. And the next thing it got to be, the second half of the year, and we got going a little bit. And then, we came down the stretch, and, I think we won 4 of our last 6, to get a playoff spot. And then we got into the playoffs, and, we felt like we were dangerous, and we went on the road and we won a first round matchup. And, so we got to the SUNYAC semis, and we ran into a freight train and a Geneseo team that's as good as any, I've seen in the 12 years I've been in the SUNYAC, and, they went on to win it. And so I think for us, we showed some resiliency, and the kids have talked about the mentality of like, hey, we learned a lot last year, coach, just by sticking with it and being relentless. And so I'm hoping that, that as much as anything carries over.
Yeah, they all come in with their eyes open, ready to roll, go back into that format, hopefully.
Yeah, Pete, that's so true, because experience is a cruel teacher, right? It gives you the lesson afterward. And so I think our guys going through it and knowing now what it takes and knowing what the sacrifice is and knowing the margin. I mean, we lost, I think at one point we had 8 1-goal losses, in the first half of the year. So we were knocking on the door every night. We were competitive. It was just one of those things where we just couldn't get over the hump. And I think now guys are starting to realize, I gotta dig a little deeper, a little earlier. I gotta be a little bit more disciplined, and understanding the margins is I think what everybody talks about. Oh, the maturity of that guy's game or the maturity of that guy's approach. I think, to be honest, is just understanding the margins.
Coach, are you? Sorry, Joe, I'm going to step in here. I'm just wondering, Coach, on the off season, are you in touch with your players on the off season? The only reason why I ask that question is, how are they able to prepare when they're not able to get on the ice at this time? Because there's no way they're getting in, or a gym in aspect. So just wondering how you're doing.
That's the $1 million question, really, Pete, for us. And again, it comes back to me telling our guys, I'll tell you this, we have a phrase, and I put it up on the locker room wall right above where you exit the room to take the ice. And it's called win anyway. And I kind of thought of that, a couple of years ago. And I said, hey, the official makes a bad call, win anyway. Our goaltender is sick and we got to play a freshman who's never played a game before, win anyway. We won last night, you know what I mean? And we were rolling. We got to win we got to win tonight anyway. We got smoked last night on home ice. We embarrassed ourselves. We got to win tonight. We got to win anyway. We got guys in the lineup, that got groin strains or, a concussion, and we got some of our key gunners out. Well, Cortland doesn't care. We got to win anyway. And I think when you start to try to apply that to where we are in the pandemic, well, you don't have you don't have access to a gym. Well, guess what? You got to win anyway. You got to find a way to work out anyway. You don't have access to, your own to ice time. Well, how are you going to get better? And so that's the conversation that we've had with guys and trying to reach out with them individually and say, okay, what resources are available to you? You got a tennis ball and a space in the garage? Okay, well then let's talk about what you can do. Okay, you actually have a home gym. Okay, let's talk about what you can do, and that's been the approach that we've taken with each guy. And so weirdly enough, I've had more individual conversations over this pandemic during this time to prepare guys than I ever have before. Because normally you just say, hey, here's the workout program. Here's what we're going to test you on. Here's what we want everybody to do. And then, okay, here's some of the extra things we want you to work at. But in this case, we've been able to look at each guy individually and say, you don't have a gym that's open. Let's figure something else out.
Yeah, because you hate to see them come in day before practice, say, I haven't been working the way I should, and hopefully they are. Now on the other spin side of this, and I'm sure, I don't know, Joey's got this other question, but recruiting wise, this has got to be holding you back too, because some of the seasons last year were short lived. So that's got to be killing your recruitment too.
It's funny, Pete, because it changed a little bit of how we recruited. And I'm a big believer in building your depth through loyalty and through opportunity. And so you have to bring guys in, I think, that you believe can play. They might not play those key minutes, but that you have to give them chances to show what they can do. So typically, I don't carry a very big roster compared to other teams. Especially in hockey, I don't know how much, you guys follow about, how our lineups are constructed, but we can dress 13 forwards and 6 defensemen, okay, and 3 goalies. Well, for us, we'll carry usually 15 forwards, right? And we'll carry 8 defensemen and 3 goalies. So every night we've got 5 guys who are sitting in the stands, right? And that's different from any other sport, basketball, football, where you got guys on the sidelines that they may not play in the game. For us, roster spots are huge. Lineup spots are even bigger, because now all of a sudden I'm battling with somebody Monday through Thursday. He gets the nod over me. I put a tie on and I go up into the stands. And so for us, we know we're not making a whole lot of guys better if we're putting a lot of guys in that situation night after night after night. So we try to think that the competition comes from, hey, there's guys coming. And so it's not in the volume of guys we have, but the quality of guys. But in this situation, we looked at it and we said, well, we may take an extra forward or 2 this year, because if someone gets, a COVID test, if we do contact tracing and guys have to be in this situation. So that was kind of how we started to identify our recruiting. Maybe we'll take a few extra guys. So now we started looking at, well, why are we going to take them? What are they going to do for us? Not just this year to help us with depth, but what are the skill sets they can bring in the future? We started looking at New York State kids more discriminately. We started saying, okay, if this kid's from Chicago, Illinois, and we like him, we think he can be a scoring left winger for us. This guy's from, Syracuse, New York. He brings a lot of the same elements. We made more commitments to New York kids as a result, because we felt like, okay, if something happens, those kids are more likely to matriculate, than kids coming from the other states. So it changed. It didn't mean that if, we were given free passes or free rides to anybody from could hold a hockey stick from New York. We were still really trying to find the pieces of our puzzle, but we have put a little more emphasis on New York State kids, with the idea that we thought that they might be able to be 4-year contributors for us.
We've talked to other SUNYAC coaches on the basketball side, and they have a tough time drawing in kids from out of state. So why don't you tell us a little bit how you do that? Because there's obviously out-of-staters that come in where basketball, it's tougher to bring them in. So if you could just elaborate on that. I come
back to the same old philosophy that your players are your best recruiters. And it just so happens that when I came to Potsdam, I really kind of felt like My first couple of years, I was coaching guys that I inherited. They're, good, talented hockey players, but maybe some guys that just didn't see the game the same way I did, or see the off ice, things the same way I did. You have to have that shared perspective, right? And I think so. All of us, it doesn't make those guys, wrong or bad. It just makes them different. You know what I mean? And so when I started, trying to bring in what, that classic phrase coaches use, my guys, you know what I mean? Well, what makes them your guys? It just makes them guys that kind of, subscribe to some of the same work habits, or some of the same, they identify success in the same way. And when I started doing that, what starts to happen is you start building these inroads in recruiting, right? And for us, Canada was a huge piece for years. But then the college cut all of our international aid to Canadian students. And so once that happened, I had to shift my gears, and I had to say, okay, well, now we can't fish in that pond the same way we used to. We can't walk in and into Ontario and be as competitive fishing in that pond, as we had been in the past. So, like a good fisherman, we start trying to find some of the spots that no one else is going. And we threw some tried a few different baits in a few different waters and said, hey, what's going to work? What's been great for us, oddly enough, is the Southeast District. And we started to get some kids out of Florida, Georgia. I've had kids on my team from all conference guy from Alabama. Now from North Carolina. We have 2 kids from Florida. That started to become something. And then in the off season, what I would do is I would go down there and I would work USA Hockey festivals and camps, and so you'd see some of those, much like in the basketball world, you see the AAU camps at different places, and I would go down and build some relationships there. And so we've got, I think last year we had and we had 11 or 12 states or provinces represented. So we've got kids from all over. Our best player of recent memory was a kid from California. I had a kid, I think the first time I came on the show, I had from Alaska, so we've really got a diversified group. And I think that's a lot of a product, and not necessarily that we were targeting those regions, but we had a kid that maybe came from that region that we were recruiting. And then he said, hey, I got a buddy, who's playing in Kenai River, that I played with in Minnesota, and maybe you want to go and see if we can't get him. And then that kind of leads to that player, and so on and so forth.
So Chris, kind of staying on this subject then, what's your connection with Can-Ams in Lake Placid? It seems like you're a director of coaching or a coach up there. It seems like
you know what? I'll tell you, my affiliations here run deep, and first and foremost is just a lot of really great coaches and guys that I just like being around. And I was really lucky that when I first started coaching at Canisius College at the Division I level as an assistant coach, my friend Roger Hewitt, who I knew, local guy, and Roger was at Clarkson a little time before me, but we kind of traveled a few of the same circles. And he said to me, hey, listen, I can bring you up to Lake Placid. I could put you in a condo for 5 weeks to be my director of coaching. And Roger was running the entire camp, and so I got a chance to do that. Found out this pretty great way to spend my summers. My wife was, had my little guys there. It was a good place to go and to do. And Roger was great to me. Can-Am was good to me. And then as time progressed, I kind of got where I was, my kids got more active and involved and doing different things. And so, I couldn't take on the same role. So now I go up a couple weeks a year and I coach, and it's just, it's like, it sounds silly, but it's like being in summer camp myself. I go out, we guys, we work together. We have a great time on the ice coaching the kids. And then, we got a tennis tournament going today. And then the next day we've got a mini golf, tournament going, and as a staff. And so it makes it so much fun for all of us, to be able, that's kind of our one place as coaches that we know we can get together every year and have a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's funny because we had Sean Pinkerton on, and he's a SUNY Oswego women's basketball coach. And he blew my mind away when he told me he coaches AAU in the off season. No, I guess I totally could see, being a director of a camp or being around for a camp sort of thing. But to see, a D3 college coach coaching in his off season and not his kid. I mean, it's an organization.
Well, I'm really lucky, Joe. I have been around long enough now. I think, what is this, be my 12th season at Potsdam, 3 years before this. So it's my 16th season as a college coach. And you just meet some people and they say, hey, we need a guy, here that, to help us out. And so, I'd go to some showcases and camps that offer you the opportunity to not only scout them, but to coach them, So I've done the Apex Sports Camp. My friend Phil Roy, who was, longtime assistant at Clarkson, he would bring me up there to do that. I go to Nashville every year, to go to Florida every year, where, you go down and you come in for 4 days and you get a chance to be on the ice with the kids, to run a practice, to see how they are in practice. You get to coach them, during a game or two. And then, you get to sit up in the stands and watch them for a game or two, and helps you to build your book of business. It helps you to build a recruiting list. And it also is great for me because you keep yourself wired into the coaching. You're on the bench, you see how the kid actually acts and how is he as a teammate and all that sort of thing. And it's just fun because it's so much more low key. You're not worried about necessarily winning the game. You're worried about maybe telling a kid something, a little tidbit that might help to make him better, and that's, as you've been in a long time. That's the best part of coaching.
Oh, without a doubt.
So, Coach, I read, I believe it's, you have had like 20 players who have gone on to play professionally.
Yeah.
After college. Obviously not all in the NHL, but there's a lot of levels of professional hockey.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's quite a few. Is that? I mean,
yeah. I mean, we've been lucky so far that we've had kids that were dedicated to the game. They wanted to play, Dave. I think everybody has the dream. I don't think you walk in your freshman year. And a lot of these kids, in all fairness to them, their Division I bubble bursts. We're recruiting kids. There's no Division II in hockey, right? So we're recruiting kids who, man, I thought I was going to go to St. Lawrence, or I thought I was going to go to Holy Cross, or I had talked to Canisius, and now, they kind of fall, to us. I think there's a humbling that comes along with that, and I think so when they walk in the door, a lot of the guys, if we're recruiting the right ones, are anxious to learn and get better. And I don't necessarily, they want to play pro hockey just like, my 15-year-old and 13-year-old son do. You know what I mean? But maybe they're not articulating it. And all of a sudden you get some guys that start to be pretty good players, their freshman year, their sophomore year, and then they start thinking to themselves, I might want this as an experience. Yeah, I'm probably not going to play in the NHL, but maybe I can, I can play 4 or 5 years in the minors. Maybe I can go to, to Europe. Maybe I can make some connections because I'd like to coach after or scout or something like that. And that's a great way to transition. And all of a sudden they come in their junior year, and you're having the meeting and they say, I don't want you to think I'm not loyal to the team or I'm not dedicated to what we're doing, but I would like to play maybe afterward if you can help me, or what do you think I need to do to play afterward? And those are some fun conversations to have with kids. And you joked about a lot of levels of minor pro hockey. I played them, I like to joke. I say I played in every league but the good one. You know what I mean? So, and myself. So you kind of build some contacts through there. And that's one thing I'm really lucky to be able to pick up a phone and call somebody in the minor leagues that maybe I played with or knows somebody I played with. And I can say, hey, listen, you might want to get a look at this Dylan Van Der Esch kid. He's a pretty good hockey player. Or, you might want to get a look at, this Sean Winnicate's kid, or whoever might be coming next for us, because, they might be able to help you. And more than anything, they're going to be good kids. You don't have to worry about late at night or running their mouths or causing you problems in the dressing room.
Yeah, I've mentioned before on other shows, I lived in Cincinnati for a few years and became a big Cincinnati Cyclones fan of the ECHL. And learned a lot about minor league hockey, because you have such access to the players and the coaches and at that level. And yeah, some of these kids, you know, yeah, I mean, like what you said, they had big dreams of D1 hockey, and it didn't quite pan out. But then here they are, kind of living their dream, albeit kind of struggling along in the minor leagues. But you can tell they love it.
That's the thing, right? We're all, in the end, you know, that there's an old adage, right? They say we all end up in the beer league anyway. You know what I mean? And when it's all said and done, and I tell the kids, you know, you want an experience. My experience for the things I like to do, you know, might be a little different than yours. And so a lot of us, if we can, and, you know, play and enjoy the game as long as we can, we'll enjoy it as long as we can. If that means, you know, that you're scraping by, you know, just enough to make your rent and just enough to, you know, to work Can-Am hockey school in the summer to augment your salary and to do the things you want to do, you can meet a lot of great people. You can have a fun experience. And the final thing about that, I think, is if some guys who, again, their dream is to play pro hockey, they wanted to play in the NHL and it didn't work out, and that's okay. But the satisfaction of playing pro hockey, you know, and having people in the stands that came to watch you play the game, to getting a paycheck for that you reached a level, you know, at the top of that pyramid that few people can get to, even if it is at the minor league level. I think there's a lot of kids that they'll have the satisfaction. Unfortunately, for some of them, they play that 1 year, they accomplish that goal, and they say, okay, that was not all it was cracked up to be. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I checked that off my list. But as I like to tell people, if you've ever seen the 70s movie Slapshot, that's a lot more documentary than it is comedy. I'm going to tell you right now.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of
Love
my
that movie.
favorites.
Yep.
Cult classic right there, Coach.
Oh yeah.
Been to the Johnstown Arena a few times myself.
Yeah, I imagine you put your dukes up walking in and walking out if your team won.
Especially going in as a Cincinnati Cyclones
I was going to
fan,
say,
yeah.
you're wearing a Cyclones hat. I bet you walked in like this, you know?
Absolutely.
So speaking of arenas, Coach, you got the opportunity to finally watch a game in your new rink in Maxey Hall, and just give you a chance to talk about that. A great redo, and I know the section's using it now for the girls' overall championship and for Section 10. And, you know, and not being a guy that's made it to, I've seen Plattsburgh's rink, I've seen SUNY Cortland's rink. I know you're going to say you're number one, but you got to feel happy with where you lie.
I love it, Joe. I think what they did there is great. The best part about it so far has been, I mean, it's crazy enough. It's been, I think, 7 years now since we redid it. We continue to add little elements and little wrinkles to it. But I think the cool part is how well it stood up. You know, I think sometimes you do a remodel or you do a renovation and, you know, you're really kind of just slapping some paint on some stuff, and you're not giving necessarily a new fan experience. You know, you're not giving them new angles or vantage points, or you think you're creating something that's not sustainable. You know, and I think that's the cool part for us. As you walk in, it's a big, bright, beautiful building. The one side seating, I think, gives us the intimacy. My assistant coach this last year, he did a great job last couple of years developing a pep band for us. You know, getting the more students involved and making it just more of a event, not just a hockey game. And I think the arena, because of that, the way it's set up, you know, I mean, our glass, we have spring-loaded glass, and so it's seamless. And so there's no, obstacles. When you're sitting down on the glass, there's nothing that impedes, your view. And they throw a body check in there, and those boards start, that glass starts rocking back and forth. It's that sort of thing that I think early on that the good decisions that were made, with the group to do those sort of things that still make it a real fun place to be today.
Yeah. I found it it's just a great venue. Even, you're walking around, I'm doing my work for Section 10 with basketball, and there's some, minor hockey or whatever going on in there. Just to stick your head in there, it's just a nice view. You can walk right in and see the action.
Yeah, it's a real appealing spot. I like the way they laid it out, and the idea that we've got the stadium seats down below, and then the tiered seats that fold out through the bleachers. And you mentioned that Section 10 game. I got to tell you, we were there that morning okay. And I walked up and I thought, what the heck is going on? I couldn't park anywhere at the start for the girls' game. And I just didn't know. Wasn't on my radar. We had played the night before, and so I get in, and now I'm sitting at my desk and I can hear the crowd, and I come outside and I look and I'm like, holy, I mean, it was jammed. And it was just an incredible feeling. And I just think what an experience for the girls, you know what I mean, to be there. And again, the intimacy, as I said earlier, the way, you feel like you're right on top of the action. It is, and the acoustics, they redid all the exterior walls, and they're incredibly insulated, which makes it energy efficient and all those good things, but also keeps the sound in. And it starts to resonate like this. And I got to tell you, as guys were coming in for our normal 11 o'clock meeting, they're strolling in with their Tim Hortons coffee and a bagel at 10:30, 10:45. I also guys say, "What the heck's going on out there?" And they walked out, and I had guys say, "This is a girls' game, a high school girls' game." Some guys like, I played junior hockey that didn't have as many, as many fans as are here. So I really think Section 10 did a good job getting themselves over there. I mean, Clarkson does certainly a good job as well, where they have for years with what they do. But I think it was really, really neat to see that, and it was kind of eye-opening for my guys to see how valuable hockey is in the community here, and at the women's level as well, which is really how it's growing is really cool.
Well, and big ifs, but if we're lucky enough that we have a full season, I know that the Section 10 was supposed to host this year's version of the state championship. And we had Carl Norman on a couple of months ago. He said really what it was going to come down to was the timing between your schedules at Potsdam State, Clarkson, in Appleton as to which one, or Canton, SUNY Canton, which one they were going to try to go to. But he really likes, I think he really likes your arena from what he was telling me. So
that's cool to hear.
That very possible down the line, you could see the girls' high school state championship at Maxey Hall. So.
That would be awesome.
So, we got about 20 minutes left, Chris, and I know when you were on 6 years ago, we probably touched upon everything when it came to your SLC and Clarkson days, but we certainly don't want this show to end without you. We'll give you a chance to talk about anything you want to. If you want to talk about the 118-year-old Mickey Locke, if you want to talk about, I'm going to get Mickey on this show somehow, Pete. So if you, and a couple other things, I looked at the list of guests that we have had on this show so far, and we've had pretty much all the SLC legends with Chris Rose, the Mahonies, both of them have been on. We had Wally Johnson on, the voice of SLU hockey. So he did your games when you were playing for Clarkson. We had on Jerry Manor, and Jerry brought you up. He brought you up in his show as one of the few high school kids that would go over and greet him, the opposing voice on the radio, at a game. And then, of course, we've had your, I'm going to guess, possible mentor, and right now fighting to bring the Stanley Cup to Brazier Falls. And we're going to ask you about that, too. We want to hear your version, a big hockey guy, and what's going on with the Stanley Cup and the bubble. But we've had Kisser on, the big goalie before yourself at SLC. So we'll give you a chance to talk about all that stuff right there.
I guess I succinctly, Joe, all I could tell you is if you drive down Barnage Road in Brazier Falls, where my parents grew up, you could start from Chris Kilcoyne, as a goaltender, to Derek Lalone, to myself, to other. I mean, everybody on that street played goalie, and we had this group of boys that were all kind of separated by about 3 years, and it just kind of trickled. Randy Brown being one of them, also on our street, And I think, in all honesty, I do think it was a humongous amount of influence. I think, that you looked up to the older kid on your block, and a lot of those guys had tremendous success. And so why wouldn't you want to emulate it, And so, to your point about looking up to Derek, I remember going to Utica as an eighth grader and watching that team, you know what I mean, to have a chance to fight for a state title and thinking, you know, I want to be the guy. I want to be the guy that's able to do this. And I want to be the guy who can, you know, take the mantle from somebody like Derek and build on it. And so, you know, I think that's where it all kind of started for me, you know, just trying to be around, to be like those great influences I was around. And, you know, you talked about Mickey. I just couldn't say enough great things about him. As a person, you know, first and foremost, I've never seen a hockey coach make more, and I'm talking at every level. I'm not even exaggerating this. I've never seen him make more out of whatever he has every single year. I mean, he's the type of guy, if he thinks he's got offense and he's got one of the more talented offensive players, he'll find a way to engineer that team to win games 8-6. You know what I mean? If you know, if he thinks he's got a stalwart goalie, but he might not have, you know, a lot of offensive firepower, he's going to find a way to win games 1-0. And how he coaches kids and how he teaches them the game is just extraordinary. And the crazy part for me is the consistency, because I see where I am now as, you know, a coach. I look back 5 years, I'm a heck of a lot better coach than I was 5 years ago. I'm a way better coach than I was 10 years ago. Why? Because of all the things that I've learned along the way. And to be quite frank, all the failures I've endured along the way. And I've said, oh man, you know, I've got to learn from that. I got to build from that. Next time I get another crack at that, if I get another crack at that. The most astounding thing for me with Mickey is his consistency. I mean, every year he puts together a high caliber team, a competitive team. And he seems to have had it figured out since about 1984, you know, and I think, you know, that's the longevity is something. But the consistency and the passion and the knowledge that he imparts on guys, I really think it's truly remarkable in our sport, you know. And I look at where he is. I don't know the exact facts, but I would be awfully surprised if there was anybody who had a longer standing career as a head hockey coach and at the high school level anywhere in New York State ever, let alone in any other sport. I mean, there may be some old curmudgeonly football coach who's still stomping the sideline, somebody who's got maybe a year or two on Mickey, but not a whole lot. So I mean, and he was the one who was so influential for me in trying to connect me to Mark Morris. And, you know, Mark was the guy who gave me my shot at Clarkson when I really had no business being there. I mean, I think I maybe showed some potential and just a willingness to stick around, you know, a willingness to be, you know, relentless in my work ethic, you know. And I think, you know, that was something I think that he could rely on. And so, you know, his willingness to take a chance on me, you know, is something that obviously changed the course of my life, you know. And that's the thing I say to young coaches, you know, if you think you've got a kid who's got a lot of heart, you know, who's willing to work for it, who's willing to, as I talk about with my assistant coaches, finding kids, if he's a show up, shut up, do his job kind of kid, and he brings it every single day, like, tell me that there's something in his game that he just isn't going to, you know, get there, because I'm going to believe in that guy and I'm going to try to find his potential. And so I think, you know, I'm a big believer in that, probably because I was a huge beneficiary of that through what Mark did for me, you know. And then when I was at Clarkson, we just had some tremendous teams and some tremendous players. And I just happened to be the guy back there who, you know, was fortunate enough to be on it and be part of it. And so, you know, I think, you know, I was able to get that to parlay into a pro opportunity, as we talked about earlier, and had a lot of fun with that experience. And, you know, that kind of naturally segues into what I'm doing now. And I think the thing for me, just the common denominator throughout all my experience is just, you know, I love the game. I love everything about it. I love practicing it. I love talking it. I love, you know, all the extra skill work. I love the workouts that go with it. I love the preparation. I love the energy you get when, you know, you're thinking about the crowd and the game and the anticipation. I mean, I loved everything. And I still do. And I think that's why I coach, is because I couldn't get it out of my system. And I think since that time, my dad was a teacher, my mom was a teacher, and I was fortunate enough to listen to them and have them say, like, people are going to help you. You know, you got to be grateful. You owe it to them all you got every day, and you owe it to them to do things the right way. And I think that I'd like to believe that I try to do that. And in doing that you learn a lot from everybody. You know, I can take I love Jerry Manor. I take a lot of what a class act Jerry Manor is. I mean, and the way he treats people and talks to people, you know, I can learn from that. I can treat people better. I can articulate myself better. I can become a more educated, more, you know, pensive and thoughtful speaker, you know, when you run into somebody like that along your way. So it's not just the coaches, it's a lot of the other people that you're fortunate enough to collide with.
Chris, I just listened to you, and you brought up something halfway through that I found very interesting, and a lot of people probably don't understand. You said that you were a better coach than you were 5 years ago. You're a lot better coach than you were 10 years ago because we learn from our mistakes. Life is the same thing as coaching, and people don't understand that. People that don't learn from their mistakes are basically destined to repeat them, and they don't last long. And the same thing with coaching. If you continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, and you do not learn from year to year your mistakes and try to grow with that and learn from them, people fade away. So I totally understand and relate to what you're saying there.
I just think it's so true, and that's again why, you know, sports can be, you know, the microcosm for life, right? You know, you can teach these lessons that we talk about, why high school sports is so important, right, and why it's so valuable to have, you know, these opportunities for these kids, because, you know, that it's hard to learn that anywhere else, you know, and we talk about the teamwork and life lessons, but I think learning to deal with failure is huge. And I get it. I've been that parent who doesn't want to see his kids strike out with the bases loaded, you know, and you're willing it for them and you're wanting it for them. But you know what? There's something to be learned there in that failure. And I think what I've gotten to be a better coach is I want to put you in a position to be successful. I want to give you all the information that you need to convert, but it's up to you to execute. And when you don't, let's look back at your process and say, well, what didn't you do right? You know, what went wrong there? And a lot of times you have asked the kid that question, and I say, hey, what would you do if I wouldn't strike out? Well, that's not an answer. That you can't change the outcome. Well, what you can change is, well, you know what, maybe I wouldn't have swung at that high pitch, you know what I mean, early on. You know, maybe I would have been a little more relaxed. Maybe I would have, you know, tried to foul that one off. Whatever it is in that process that they can learn from. And I think that's what's made me, you know, a lot better than I was years ago. And what's made me, I think, a better person is that I'm able to, you know, try to manage those failures and tell the guys, hey, if you're failing, like, let's fail forward. You know, like, let's fail forward. And if we do that, and Mark Morris one time said to me, he said, you know, there's a lot to be learned, you know, in losing hockey games as well. And I said, well, then I'm on my way to becoming Stephen Hawking, because I feel like I'm losing more games than than I'm winning right now. But at the same time, you know, I think, you know, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't take those things for myself, you know.
So I had the pleasure of having dinner last night with the legendary Dave Barnes and Darren Wilson. And I told him that last night, I don't think we had this lined up last night. Maybe we did, but I think I had told him we were going to be talking to you soon.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I don't know, Pete and Dave, they could probably jump in on this. I am intrigued every time I get next to a couple of hockey guys that know the game of hockey and listen to them talk about the game. There's something about that your sport that's even different than Pete and I talking hoops. It's just different. You guys have a language all your own, and I'm interested. I'm fascinated as an outsider. I love listening to two guys talk hockey. I'm not a big fan. I like hockey, but I'm not, where I'm going with it. So since we are in one of the just craziest times of all, and I am totally impressed watching the NBA and the NHL bubbles here going on. So being a hockey guy, give us who's going to who we going to be watching in October in the Stanley Cup?
Okay, well, I love the question. I love that you put me on the spot, Joe, because I got a few buddies at a couple different places. You know, Craig Conroy is an unbelievable guy. There he's in Calgary. I pull for him. Chris Clark was my roommate at school at Clarkson, and he's director of player development for Columbus Blue Jackets. So, you know, they all listen when I say these type of things, and then they call me out on calling favorites, you know. But for me, I think it'd be pretty extraordinary to have that Stanley Cup in Brazier Falls. And I was fortunate to get to know Zach Bogosian over the number of years. His father, Ike, was friends with Mark Morris. And so when Zach was, you know, a young guy, I'm talking 6, 7, 8 years old, around the Clarkson locker room when I was playing there, I just thought he was a terrific kid. You know, he and I have maintained connection over the years. I said to Derek, I talked to Derek, I think right around the time he was on the show with you guys. And Derek was awesome sharing, you know, information with me. Hey, this is what we're doing on our penalty kill. This is the language we're talking about, the verbiage we're using, the indicators of why we do what we do. And it was just a supreme education for me. It was just, I was really grateful for him for taking the time. And I just happened to say at the end, I said, hey, how about a guy from Messina and Brazier Falls having their name on the Stanley Cup at the same time in the same year? I said, that would be unreal. And he just said, I'll you know, as the only Derek can say, I'll try to see if I can get you an invite to the party. You know, and I all right, I'll talk to you later, you know. So I would love to see them do it. I would be pretty extraordinary for those guys. You know, to have a chance to bring that home, it'd be amazing. You know, I got to bring up Matt Meacham. You know, Matt and I don't know each other all that well. Chicago's in there. I'll tell you how great the North Country is. A number of years ago, I LinkedIn and I sent him a message and I just said, hey, Matt, we're coming up to the Senators, you know, Blackhawks game tonight. My son's a huge Blackhawks fan. Any chance we could meet you after the game? And within 30 minutes, he said, Chris, this is my cell. I'll put you on the list. I'd love to see you guys after the game. I went down. My kid met Corey Crawford and, you know, signed autographs. And at the time, Joel Quenneville was the coach and, you know, and Matt. And I thought to myself, I don't know if that happens anywhere else in the North Country. And so, you know, the good people that are you know, ascended to these positions are people that you can really root for and you can really pull for. So, despite all my other allegiances, I'm kind of secretly pulling for Tampa.
I think Pete and Dave might say that themselves because they know it. You know, we had Derek on the show, and obviously, if that happens, and of course, our luck. You know, I don't want to bring it up, but I mean, I'm worried that we're going to actually win the Stanley Cup, and we won't be able to get together. But yeah. Kisser will find a way to get us together.
Yeah. If anybody could do it, he'll do it. And so I want to make sure I'm on record, you know, as saying that. So I'm glad you asked me, Joe. So I don't lose my invite.
Hey, and Kisser is so awesome. I'm sitting there last night with Darren and Dave, and Tampa had just played yesterday in one of those round robin games, and I think they came back and won. And yes. Darren sent Kisser a message and got a reply like back within 10 minutes. You know, he's unbelievable.
It's amazing. I've actually texted him during games and said, you know, I love, you know, what a great goal or what, you know, whatever it might be. Of course, he doesn't respond during the game, but, you know, and he'll call me. I'm getting on the team plane, you know, and whatever, and talk to me. And I've had countless people that I've been at the rink in Brazier. My kids, you know, play hockey and I'm there, and they'll come up and they'll say, have you seen Derek lately or talked? And sometimes I have, and sometimes I haven't. And they'll say, oh, well, we went down to Florida, you know, and we just happened to go into practice, and he, you know, took us through the locker room, and he, you know, gave my kid a puck and all the things that go with it. And it's just an incredible source of pride that I have for somebody from our region, you know what I mean, to be to take care of all the people, to remember where he came from, to know the support he had and have appreciation for it. I just got such a high regard, and it's contagious, right? His personality and his charisma, as you guys know, and so it's an easy guy to root for. And like I said, Craig Conroy is much in the same way, for me, and another North Country guy that every time I'm around the hockey world, somebody mentions his name, I'm beaming, because they talk about what a great guy, what an incredible person. And those are the things that you're like, yeah, he's from North Country, he's a good North Country guy.
Well, and Chris, he's so amazing in the fact, Pete, when Pete and Dave and I brought this show back in April, he was one of those names I had tossed down. I know Derek, but his position is a little bit different than being, this SUNYAC Potsdam Bears coach, where you and I see each other on a he coaches for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I couldn't believe it when he said, I didn't even, with everybody else, I try to send one of our shows to them to give them an idea what Pete, Dave, and I are trying to do. Derek, we had barely started. I didn't have a show to send to them. I sent him a text. I sent him my idea. Yeah, when you need me. He didn't even bat an eyelash. He goes, I get a chance to talk to the North Country? You bet. I'll be there. Tell me when.
It's just awesome. And again, I just think that that it's just such a source of pride for all of us to see somebody ascend to such a high level, but remain so grounded and not only grounded but so connected to the people here, and have time for everybody in a busy schedule and do that as you said. It's just it's uplifting, it really is.
Well, Chris, this hour flew by. We knew it would with you. Just one of the best. You're just one of the best. You're so well spoken, and I knew it. This hour was fun, and we had a good time. So I'm so
you gotta work on your energy level, though. It's a little down.
Yeah. I approach a lot of things with a lot of passion, Pete. I'm grateful for you guys having me on. It's such a pleasure to be with you. And anytime that, I can join you under any circumstances, by all means, guys, I'd love to be with you. So thank you.
Can't wait to go up and catch a game this year, Chris.
Yeah. That's great.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for tonight here on ESS Empire State Sports and the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Our hosts, Joey Riem, Dave Bartlett, and Pete Gosla, saying goodnight with our special guest, Chris Bernard. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you.